internal and external enemy.
Crime in our community, police brutality.
We can continue to complain about the problem,
Stop complaining.
or we can actually do something about it.
Let's do something, y'all.
Join us
Join us.
February 25th in Memphis, Tennessee at the McFarland Community Center as we work together to take back our community. We're kicking things off at 1 o'clock p.m. with a short Black History program. We're going to entertain, educate, and shine the spotlight on some of our brightest youth. Then it's time to get down to business with a community panel discussion. We're dealing with the topic of how can we keep our community safe from both internal and external threats. That's Saturday, February 25th in Memphis, Tennessee at the McFarland Community Center, 4955 Cottonwood Road. Let's stop talking about the problem and start being about the solution.
Let's be about it, y'all.
We always said the Black Panther Party. We always said the Black Panther Party that they can do anything they want to us. We might not be back. I might be in jail. I might be anywhere. But when I leave, you can remember I said with the last words on my lips that I am a revolutionary.
These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. These are the voices of New Africa. Free in the land, and we ain't asking y'all.
And welcome to another episode of the Voices of New Africa, the show where we educate the uneducated and re-educate the miseducated. I am your brother Prophecy, and always I got some super backup, the awesome. I got Grandmaster Teacher of Elder Brother Fadali, and I got my comrade, the soldier, the one and only, the only one, Brother Kakayi. How everybody doing, man?
Free land.
Free land. Right.
All right, okay.
Black power.
Definitely. So we'll jump right into this because we had like a heavy weekend, and Grandmaster, I know I don't even want to start with what's going on with this weekend. Last weekend you attended the birthday celebration of one of the great freedom fighters. Kind of tell us about the brother that had the birthday last weekend in Atlanta, Georgia, and about that.
Yes, Willie Mikasa Ricks Dada was a student on that. He is a student on. Formerly was a student nonviolent coordinator committee, and helped to organize students throughout the South during that period of time. He also was a founder of the All African People Revolutionary Party and the founder of other organizational things. He's down in Atlanta. He turned 80 years old, and he had been he's still active and has still not put anything down in terms of talking about quitting or anything like that. He's still a powerful speaker that he was back then. And I met him at Talladega College, and I was going to Stillman College, and some student nonviolent coordinated people who were there at Stillman, they took us students over to Talladega College, and we met a man that was standing on top of a table, speaking Black Power, and encouraging people to go and organize, in the community, or organize where we are on the campus. So I took his advice and went back and organized a Black Student Alliance on a Black college campus called Stillman College in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And I brought Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael's in on the campus, and ultimately we continued a relationship with Rick in about 73 at Memphis State, where we had a Black Student Association forum. Where do we go from there? We had a NAACP person, SCLC person, Black Panther person, and we had Ricks. And Ricks introduced us to Pan-Africanism, and we followed Pan-Africanism. Because the NAACP, had its day in Memphis, SCLC, with King. And then we had the Black Panther Party, but the Black Panther Party was really doing a Democratic Party at this time. You know, they were doing, you know, elections, all that. And Bobby Seale had just almost won the mayorship of Oakland, but he lost. So consequently, there was only one revolutionary organization that was the All African People Revolution, in our estimation. And we formed a chapter here in Memphis that lasted for 10 years. And we were able to do a lot of things here. But Mukasa was the one that coined the phrase Black Power on a march from Memphis to Jackson when James Meredith was shot right outside of Shelby County going across Mississippi. He was doing a walk for freedom, and he was individually trying to march, and some European or some cracker shot him right after he had crossed into Mississippi from Shelby County. And so therefore it brought together a united front of organization, all but the NAACP. Roy Wilkins found out that people were going to talk about Black Power, and he decided he was going to leave. And he left the NAACP in a lurch, you know, in other words. And then so we had SDLC, we had Floyd McKissick, and we had Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, and we had other organizations, and so they had to march. And while they were marching, SDLC was saying, "Freedom now, freedom now," and so Nick had a slogan. Their slogan was "Power for Black People." So when Kwame Ture, Stokely got upset, he said, "Black Power," so Willie Ricks was the one that coined it. And if you go back and look at the march and all the pictures around the march, you will see in the background, you would say somebody said, "Black Power, Black Power." That was Mukasa Willie Ricks there. And so he just celebrated his 80th birthday, and he gave a powerful, speech. It was a birthday party, but he was honored, by the mayor of Atlanta and different people from Alabama and places, people whose careers were made as a result of coming across him. In other words, he was a turning point for all of these people that came. Some of them were like 78 years old, going back to the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, but many of them were like on the college campuses, and he stuck in Atlanta to go on a campus at Morehouse. And in 1990, the security guard beat him up on the campus of Morehouse and injured him. But he still was able to recover, and he's still active in Atlanta. But he's like a promoter of all kinds of organizational things. As a matter of fact, he helped to create a united front in Atlanta, various organizations. And so it was a privilege to go down to Atlanta, to fly down to Atlanta. Several of us who were in the All African People Revolutionary Party flew down to Atlanta and for that celebration, and that was kind of like a fundraiser there. Mukasa Ricks had been working for the movement since he was 15 years old, and he never had any other job than being an organizer. In other words, he's not getting Social Security or any of this so-called retirement, because his whole life has been to organize African people. And he was able to go to Africa and spoke in 32 different countries. And he was given his name Mukasa by Idi Amin Dada. And so, in other words, so he was in Uganda during the time that Idi Amin was in power. And so basically, when I deal with him, what I call that party, though, was a party of the petty bourgeoisie, because all of these people were successful people for the most part, and they had a stopping point where they ran across Rick. The same thing I said about him being on top of the tail. Everybody had the same story about how they met because of how he turned them around into Black Power. So we know Black Power, the Black Power revolution was basically defeated because we have people who are in a class situation where their only desire was to become a mayor or city councilman or whatever. And Black Power was not really about that. The definition of Black Power that we embraced was saying liberation of Black people by any means necessary. So many of the people who just wanted to have a position, they now have a position as a result of the struggles here in the South to register people to vote and all those kind of things. And the leadership that has resulted from that has not been a leadership. It basically have been people who, and we have a few that wanted to still trying to do certain things for our people, but for the most part, they just became a Black mayor became a position rather than not a power, but just a position for somebody to hold, to say that they're the mayor of a city or a city councilman or whatever. But this was the greatest party I'd ever gone to in my life in terms of seeing the people that came, and they it was a great tribute of people from all over the world that came to Atlanta on that weekend.
So I did notice that you was telling us about some of the things that you saw while you were in Atlanta. Specifically, you was talking about a new Black Wall Street initiative that they got going on. Kind of talk about that.
Okay, so the event was held in the new Black Wall Street building that houses 100 Black businesses. And it's very significant when we talk about it because we know that in Tulsa in 1921 that they dropped a bomb on the community, the Black community of Tulsa that was called Greenwood, and people were killed. They were in other words, a lot of people think that they just dropped a bomb and they dropped a bomb, but Black folks were massacred. In that, and bodies, and there were many bodies piled up, and we don't get the whole story. And they made the people were not allowed to go back to their places of residence and all that. They were put in a tent city, and all of them were given identification so they could identify everybody, so they could intimidate, the people. And for a long time, we did not even know that this massacre had occurred, and that the government had dropped a bomb from an airplane right there in Tulsa. And so the new Black Wall Street in Atlanta is I think a key project, and hopefully we'll find the people in collectively coming together and supporting, that their businesses or whatever, but understand that this community has to be a part of all of this. In other words, if we don't have a community, and the business is not a collective, rather than it's an individual capitalist enterprise, that would not be what we're talking about, because African people in Tulsa, what they call the Black Wall Street, supported all of it, the businesses. And this is what but we had a lot of Black Wall Street, but this particular one is one in which was grievous in terms of how they did that. I found out that the Red Cross came in to give people tickets out of Tulsa. And that's why it became it was secret for about 30 years before we learned about, the people as a whole across the country learned about Black Wall Street and what happened to it. And so I think that can be a model for us everywhere in order for businesses to come together and build our community back and get control of our community and get control of our economy. And I was very impressed. You know, it was a brand new building. It was bought by African, person, and he was able to accumulate, like I said, 100 different, bits, and very impressive. And it's something that we can look, for here and everywhere we are to try to build up so that on our route to get our nation state together. It should be something that will lead us to being able to acquire the land that would be necessary for us to have our own economy.
Oh yeah, and speaking of Black Wall Street, the new Black Wall Street project, if I'm not mistaken, that was headed by a brother by the name of Jay Morrison, which is actually someone who considers himself a New Africa. He talks a lot about the Republic of New Africa, and he speaks of the foundation of 1968 and really what we know. And I think he made his money off of real estate in New Jersey, and he moved down to Atlanta, and he bought, this and practice collective cooperative economics. And has this thing. And like you said, I think this is an excellent opportunity of something that we can go down and we can study and duplicate other. And that's something I think we should make a practice of identifying things that are successful and helpful and useful in our ultimate goal, the liberation, studying it with a critical eye, not with an envious eye, not with I hope he failed because I ain't did it, you know what I'm saying? But with a critical, hopeful, analytical eye, and you take those things that are successful, take those things that are applicable to your situation, apply it to your situation, and you build upon that, and we can grow like that. So yeah, I think, I was always curious about the whole Black Wall Street project when I first heard about it. And I'm glad you had an opportunity to see it firsthand and to hear such positive things about it. That's very encouraging. But also, just yesterday, matter of fact, there's a lot that we want to talk about. But yesterday, which was the 25th, which is actually International Reparations Day. Our National Reparations Day, one of it is Reparations Day. But we held our first annual Our Story Black History 365 program, which was we also used as a community panel discussion to discuss safety in our community, what we can do to counter threats internal and externally. Both you and myself were part of that discussion. And I think it went well. What's your analysis of the discussion?
Yeah. So we as a people have to understand what are the internal conditions that have put us in the position that we're in, and who's going to be able to solve the problem. We must solve the problem. We must, and so therefore, even in terms of the Republic of New Africa, there's a portion that we talked about that was a military portion called the Black Legion. And we're going to have to be able to protect our community. And we're going to have to create our own security so that we'll be able to retake control of our community to the point of where we understand. But we're not going to just blame the youth for whatever they're doing or indiscretions and things. What we want to do is we want to organize and give direction to the youth and to people, and that's what we talked about. Trying to how do we grab back the youth in our community to understand that they're part of a community, that they must protect that community, but we have to ourselves provide the economy for the youth to be able to be a part of, and when we talk about protecting our people in the community, where the youth would have to be a part of the whatever military organization that we set up, and we talked about that there's no way that we had to police our own selves. We have to be the ones that are organizing protection for our people. And then we were talking about also that we got to restore the link between the elders and the youth. Yeah. You know, but we understand that all people are not elders. So we got a lot of old people who who are who don't have information, who are not educated, and so we have to continue the program that we like we're doing on the radio to educate and re-educate our people, and consequently we'll be able to set a mode for development in the community, and so it was very important that we had this meeting yesterday, because we're going to have ultimately a coalition of people who are all going to be helping each other and doing the thing, and combining their efforts, and it was a very enlightening meeting, because it showed that people are organized in the community, and that we have to begin to give them direction so that they can further organize themselves, and then we can collaborate on a lot of things. That was I thought it was a great meeting and a great beginning, and I met some new people, young people, that were there, and we're going to give direction. We're going to be able to do the things that will be necessary to grab back our community and to build a nation, and so we have to make sure that we give information. What we find is people don't have information about what others are doing, and they're trying to duplicate things that don't need to be duplicated. They need to be added to, and then when we look at it from that standpoint, that's where we are. And that's why we didn't try to what they call that, dodge the issue.
Yeah.
We can't dodge the issue. We got to begin to take on the issue. And people are concerned about crime in our community. But one thing we find out that we have to get people to understand, that no man and no woman is born a criminal. We're talking about a criminal society called capitalism that has made our people individuals and made us not be able to do the things as a group, because they have given us this motivation only to try to become rich or become, and in America and other capitalist states, they do not care how you get rich. So if you get rich off of killing your people or doing something to your people or getting power over your people and exploiting your people, and that's what capitalism does. And we have to get our people to understand the capitalism. Well, the other thing we said, we want to study the system so we understand what is the impact. So and we got to stop letting them study us. We must also study them in order to be able to understand what are the conditions in which we live, and then we'll be able to explain to the people. And we had youth, young people, and what we find is that people are trying to train their children, trying to educate their children, and one role that we're going to have to do is to make sure that we're not talking about America. That we, in other words, some people want to be African American and all that. And Malcolm X told us that in other words, we are not Americans, and so consequently understanding that we are not Americans, he likened it like having an empty dish at a dinner, nothing on your plate. And so how do you call yourself American and you don't have any benefit from being called an American? So that's why we said New African. And New Africa, is not just here in America, but the whole Western Hemisphere is comprised of Africans that were captured and brought here in the same situation we're in. But what we want to do, what we have to do, is create our own government so that we'll have our own economy, so we can participate in the world economy.
Yeah. I thought that the meeting went extremely well. I mean, it was mission accomplished because we didn't really set out to go have a meeting where we could just talk and entertain people and have a good time for a couple of hours. We created this event specifically to meet with other organizations and other people who are serious about doing things in the community, so we can collaborate and have a collective effort and make everything stronger. And I think that's exactly what happened. You know what I mean? It happened in a beautiful way. And my favorite part of the meeting, you know what I'm saying, I think we, did a good job of articulating the problems and talking, giving solutions. But once we opened it up to the people, when we opened up to the people, it kind of blew me away at the engagement, because one thing that was clear is the people are ready for action. The people are ready for action. Sometimes the leadership got to catch up to the people. You know what I'm saying? And that was really encouraging, because, they were like saying, well, like, yo, y'all ain't nobody got to reinvent the wheel. We got this going on. We got this going on. We got this going on. We just need to make a collective effort and support each other and make everything stronger. So I think that was a beautiful idea. And we had actually like a movie moment, because we was like saying, okay, we got to set the next meeting, and the next meeting, make sure we answer the call, make sure y'all signed up and all of this type of stuff. And because one of the initiatives that we were talking about was the Rites of Passage program. And, the women, the sisters of our community have done a successful rites of passage programs. I was like saying, we need one for the males. We need one for and it was echoed by the sisters also. And even the sisters like almost had a challenge, like, well, man, we need y'all to step up. We need you to step up. And we was like saying, okay, well, next meeting, we're going to make sure we address that problem. And the brothers from the audience, in the audience were like, no, we can do it now. And all the brothers came to the stage, and we came and we started building right then and there. And it was a really beautiful moment. And it just goes to show that if you pull the call out and you give the call in the correct way, the people will respond, because the people are ready. You know what I'm saying? Everything that we're talking about here, week after week after week, month after month after month, is correct, and people will respond to it, and the people are responding to it because everybody was on the same page, everybody was energetic, and people had ideas, and we had different resources and skills and talents, and all of us just bringing them together, getting on the same page. And so I thought it's real hopeful, real inspiring, and it has a lot of potential for a lot of great things that, we can start right here in Ida B. Wells. And like I said yesterday, a year from now, I don't want to be talking about what we can do. I want to be talking about what we have done. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm really encouraged by this. And anybody who, is in the area that did not have an opportunity to make it to this particular meeting, it's going to be others. You know what I'm saying? And this is just the beginning. You know what I'm saying? If it just stops right here, then it's a failure. You know what I'm saying? Success will ultimately be determined on what comes out of this. And I have always said that anytime a group of like-minded people get together to have a meeting, a program, or whatever it is, it should not end with just being a program. It should end with active action. A program or something that is that we can actively do, that can bring about our collective desires, our collective goals and objectives. And I think, what I'm saying, that was an excellent start, what I'm saying? And I'll yield right there. That's my assessment.
That was somewhat with the history of Memphis and things that have happened in Memphis. And a lot of people don't realize that the youth, the things that happen to youth, happened from the government, in terms of the government and the police and all the things, because it was youth in the 1960s. It was youth, even in Memphis, that began to put programs together, began to lay out things within the organization, and organizations were built on top of the youth. Even organizations like Operation Push Memphis, where we had thousands of people in the organization, but it was us as youth. But at the same time, we had people who were in who were in the older organizations such as NAACP, who basically had cooperated with the government to put us all in in jeopardy, and we were being harassed even at Memphis State by Memphis police, and who were undercover, who did everything to undermine us and our programs and things that we set together. But we were successful in putting together certain cultural programs and political programs. Particularly, it was mentioned that we had Black theater started here in Memphis, called the Dopway have, where all the black theater have their origin in what we had set up, and we had gotten us youth. It was a group of us, about 15, age range from 19 to 26 years old, and we was able to put together, and train the children how to become actors and how to become directors and all that, and all the thing. But a lot of people miss the things that happen in Memphis. They want to not give credit to what happened in terms of Memphis, because on Memphis State campus, this same youth that was there basically created programs on Pan-Africanism, programs, and brought Dr. Ben down here to Memphis, they talked about educate Africans in terms of what, and put the whole movement. And we did African Liberation Day. We took people to Washington, D.C. to march in the African Liberation Day programs, things up in Washington, D.C. And we went all over all over the South, organizing students on the campus from here. And and all the things that we talk about when we talk about the FBI and all that. At first, we were not aware of how the government was was undermining our our progress and all that, because even in the first group that was organized on the Black Power, the invaders, these people were basically browbeat and put in prison, put in jail, harassed by the Memphis police. And even some of the elders who thought King was assassinated because some youth, broke up a march or whatever. But it was the FBI, it was the Memphis police that were all, responsible for what happened to the King March and all that. There was a police riot that happened when they pulled King out of that march, in which he had to come back here. And we still have people in SCLC and other groups, even Al Sharpton came in and tried to talk about the youth that supposedly had, been involved, and they didn't want them involved in the so-called Next March and all that kind of stuff. So we had that kind of rap that was hung up on us as youth, but we still continue to build up organizations, still, until the point of where, we were able to do things. So a lot of people who come to Memphis, say, nothing ever happened in Memphis. No, in the 70s and the 80s, in the 60s and 70s and 80s, a lot happened with youth, and organizing and all the kind of things. And we had programs and all those kind of things. But those programs, like everywhere else, what happened to Chicago, to Fred Hampton, and and the Black Panther Party, which Fred Hampton was assassinated, and the Black Panther Party was shut down in Illinois as a result, and all of these things, so Memphis, and one of the things that I was advocating is that not to be telling our youth not to come back to Memphis. Memphis is a good place to organize. Matter of fact, Memphis, if we organize in Memphis, we'll be able to organize everywhere around this area, because we were the forces that were able to go down into Mississippi, go down to North Carolina and South Carolina and Louisiana, and we're able to keep a movement going that was already been broken apart by infiltrators and all those kind of things, and people would be surprised when we found out and we saw that people, we knew who some of the infiltrators were, but a lot of times we found, like after they have destroyed the movement, we found black police officers, with black with uniforms and all that. So so these are the kind of things that that we got to look at, that they had a conspiracy to keep the youth from being positively involved. So therefore that led the way to gang activity and all that, because they basically virtually kicked us out of the movement to some extent.
All right, definitely.
Want to go real quick to our studio audience, and I'm gonna have to have you read them. You know what I'm saying, comrade? So So yeah, matter of fact, let me see. I pull up one from Brother Bingo.
Brother Bingo.
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah, Brother Rico, free land, brother. Brothers and sisters.
the BB before BB before the
Yeah.
that's a
That's
greeting.
first, that's Swahili. Yeah, free the land, brother. Uh, Millie Queen, thank you for joining us in the New African Broadcast Association, NAVA. Please check out our other shows, New African Perspective on Mondays at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live. We also have the Foundation of the Nation on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then we have conversations between Conrad. Let me take this off. It's kind of phone, y'all. Conversations between Conrad on Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. And that's on Facebook Live as well. Truth and Power Corner Fridays at 5 p.m. Uh, uh, and it's on Blog Talk Radio 516-387-1548. That's with our Queen, Meta Queen here, Free Land Queen. Yeah, we got a lot of. We are New Africans, prisoners of war. Prisoner of war that's not even out.
Yeah, definitely want.
First blood between them.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in. Make sure y'all drop a like, share your comments, let us know that you are part of the show, and if it's anybody that you know that could benefit or would enjoy this type of content, just in the comment section, just drop their name and so they can get a notification and they can join the family, join the conversation. Because we talk about some very important things, and as I talked yesterday, I mean not yesterday, but talked about earlier. February 25th, National Reparations Day. Reparations is slowly becoming a part of the mainstream narrative. People are talking about, usually they say, just talk about a check, a dollar amount. And we say, reparations can't simply be a dollar amount. We need land, institutions, and a whole lot of things because we have to be repaired. But it not only can it just be for Black people in America, it has to be Black people all over because this has been a global system of terrorism, white supremacy, oppression, capitalism that has been devastating to our people all over the world, regardless of where we find our people. But this conversation about reparation is only going to grow. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not going to go anywhere because the cat's out the bag. So what's your analysis or thoughts about this whole subject of reparations?
Okay. Okay. So reparations, we have been denied reparations throughout the world, but in particular, when we talk about the United States, we got to understand that our leadership did not come up to the level of understanding that reparations was important. Matter of fact, Frederick Douglass, said to the people who were talking about what should we do with these, just leave these people alone. This was Frederick Douglass, the comment that he made, and it's a comment also. When we look at all the organizations that where you had leadership that wouldn't talk about reparations in any kind of form, and they want to become a part of America. And so now so what I'm saying is, like, at this stage, we're beginning to get people to understand what reparations is all about. Reparations is about land, and even in the beginning, even in 1865, when you had Directive number 15, by John Sherman, it was understood that any kind of reparation that would be, it would have to deal with land. Would have to deal with us becoming in control of land, And even though they wanted to just give us just some pittance of land, but they were able to. Many Africans were able to take advantage of Directive 15. But Andrew Johnson, who became the president of the United States after Lincoln, disregarded all efforts. Even radical Republicans were supposed to try to introduce reparations into the Congress. They never did. They never were successful in bringing about any proposals for reparations. But the 40 acres of the mule was the most discussed, things they were talking about. And the 40 acres was implemented under Directive 15. But when they turned the system back over to the former Confederates, they took back almost all the land that had been allocated for the Africans in the South, and so therefore it put off the discussion on reparations. And then some of our leaders who basically wanted to had known that we should be separated as a people from us. They became interested only in becoming politicians in the so-called first Reconstruction. And so consequently, when in 1777, when Rutherford B. Hayes was, made president, Martin Delany went back to Pan-Africanism, went back to saying we need to go, we need to leave this country, but he had already had already participated, in the so-called political system, and they were all kicked out in after 1877, and so that led to Africans going out of the southern states to go to Kansas and all those, and we had towns and things that were founded by black folks, in what they call the West, but they, in other words, they had split up all our goals in terms of trying to get land here and being a part of America. So here we are in the 21st century, and Marcus Garvey was the one that brought us back to understand that we need land, and Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad, and to understand that land is power. All power comes from land. And if we're ever going to have power, we have to have control of land. And that's where in 1968, the Republic of New Africa was formed. And we're at this point at our best moment in terms of beginning to let our people know that they have a provisional government, and that provisional government is what. And now what we have to do is recognize that we're going to have mass movement, just like we had mass movements away from the South. We got to have mass movement back to the South, people who have resources. And that's what earlier we were talking about the new Wall Street, new Black Wall Street, because those kind of conceptions are the ones that are going to lead us to be able to have our own economy, and we'll be able to take over the land. And because if we look at it and go look at the numbers right now, they have forced us out of our majority states like South Carolina. So now South Carolina only has 26% of the population. We got to bring the people back, to all those states: South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and Louisiana. And particularly, we know that we had complete control of Mississippi, Louisiana, and South Carolina, in that period of time back in so-called Reconstruction time. And but we got to understand that we got to have our own political, economic, cultural system that we control. That it's only us that can deliver us and put us in a position where we're going to be able to stand up in the world, and then we're going to find allies, from all over the world. I'm talking about African people who are going to realize that we need to have the world economy come to a socialist economy, and we won't have the situation in Africa today, like for example in Sierra Leone, where they got the train going from the mine, the diamond mine and the gold mine to the British ship. You know, the so-called former mother country, all over Africa. We have established no industries that we control, or we don't control it. The resources are still going to the capitalist Europeans, and including America, particularly from the Congo and places like that. And so the Europeans are still living off the resources and the labor of African people. And so in our new African nation, we're going to make sure that we have our thing set up so that we'll be able to do the things that would be necessary to restore us to our original historic selves, to the point of where we will become power in the world under a socialist economy.
Definitely. Excellent point. And kind of, piggybacking on what you said, you were saying that this conversation about reparations, it has to include land, and it has always included land, as you said, even, when in the Special Field Order number 15, where we get the concept of 40 acres and a mule. These 40 acres, which some of our people actually was granted, probably most noted brother by the name of Tunis Campbell, who got these 40 acres and began to cultivate this 40 acres and created schools, and actually had a form of a government and even a military in it, which you have the seeds of a black nation right there. If they were just allowed to grow, and you would have independent black communities with autonomy that would have grown, from the beginning or the end of this system of chattel slavery. So, the seeds of what we're trying to do right now was planted long, before 1968. 68. In fact, you can say and accurately state that the black nation, as we look at it in North America, started when the first African person was placed into this system of chattel slavery against their will. When we had different people from different nations, different backgrounds, different languages, different religions, but we lost all of that during this chattel slavery, and we became a new people. We still were African people, but we're not the same African people that we were when we were in the continent. That's why we call ourselves a new African people. But at that moment, the black nation came into existence. Even if you don't even want to be a part of the black nation existed regardless. It does not matter your will, except that we just were an oppressed nation, and still are an oppressed nation, under the imperialistic forces of the United States of America. And that's where we are today. We are still a black nation. I don't care if you call yourself a Muslim, a Hebrew Israelite, a Rastafarian, a Christian, or more, whatever it is, we all make up the black nation. And in order to really, gain liberation collectively, not just having some individuals who have had success under this capitalistic system, but in order for our people to rise and be able to deal with the many, many problems that has come about as a result of living under a white supremacist capitalistic society for over 400 or 500 years, we have to have our own. We have to be able to have our own. So any reparations has to include land. Land has to almost be the starting point, and everything else you got to build on top of that. But it has to include land, because the land is the basis of all power, is the basis of all freedom. 98% of the indigenous population was annihilated, assassinated, genocide, because these European people wanted the land of the Americas. A whole nation of people were kidnapped. A whole nation of African people were kidnapped and forced to work and cultivate the land of the Americas, which made this country the richest and most powerful nation in the world. And so, the whole idea of reparations is a no-brainer. Of course, they owe us reparations. And in fact, the interesting thing I was reading the other day, Japanese Americans so-called Japanese Americans have aligned themselves with the, Black reparation movement because they said that, of course, they got reparations for being imprisoned in concentration camps during what was that, World War II?
World War II.
Yeah, during World War II. And they said, well, during, their struggle, Black people came to their aid and to help them advocate and gain reparations. And they say they want to return the favor, and they're advocating for reparations for Black people. So, yeah, the concept of reparations, it's a no-brainer. Of course, they owe us reparations. They're just we're at a stage of development where you can't really deny it and they're being forced. And we was talking about a story the other day, and I haven't been able to confirm this story, so I don't know the details, but so, take that for what it is. But from my understanding, there's been proposal right here in Memphis, Tennessee, Shelby County, to allocate $5 million to study the effects of slavery to see if we need reparations or see, as reparations or anything like that. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, let me say this, because in Congress, John Conyers, who, from Detroit, put forth a resolution of studying reparations in the Congress of the United States. It's been there since the 1970s, that resolution. And study, in other words, there's been no motion. We don't need a study, $5 million for a study is not, in other words, why would we need a study? Let's study American history. If we study American history, we'll see. And we'll study the history of the Western Hemisphere, we'll see what is necessary for us to deal with it. Because, they turned everything upside down on Haiti and made Haiti pay reparations to France. And Haiti was the first independent African republic, in the world, not just in the Western Hemisphere, but in the world, because you only had two republics. That was the United States and France under the French Revolution. And so, and Haiti was inspired by the French Revolution and created this republic. And my brother Kakai talked about how the little time that Haiti was, liberated completely, that how it helped other, nations in the Western Hemisphere like Mexico and Bolivia and places like that, Colombia down in South America. But the United States had made it a point to say that there will never be an independent Black republic, in the Western Hemisphere. And we only really have had three independent republics that were non-white. And that's Cuba and Nicaragua and Haiti, and Cuba's still independent, but it's been its wealth has been taken away from it through what they call an embargo and all. So when we looking at this whole situation of reparations here, then we need to look at the West. When Malcolm came back from Africa in 1964, he was getting ready to go to the United Nations, to talk about us, not just Africans here in America, but the 150 million Africans in the Western Hemisphere getting their freedom and getting their, liberation and getting their reparation. And because even when we look at places like Jamaica and, that became independent in 1962, from the British, they became neo-colonial, oasis for the Europeans to do their bauxite and all that rental rep and all those, things throughout the Caribbean and throughout South America and throughout, even when we talk about Brazil, the one that has the largest African population, they have gotten people in Brazil to deny that they're still African, they got people saying they're Pando or some kind of Pardo, and this is supposed to be 43%, but they're Black, they're African. But they have gotten, we have no control of any of the resources, even here in the Western Hemisphere, in the countries that that basically we try to liberate, where slavery ended. Slavery ended in Cuba in 1872, but the United States and Spain had a war. The United States came and took control of Cuba. In Brazil, what they call slavery was ended in 1884. That was the last so-called chattel slavery state. And so when we look at it in terms of reparation, when we talk about reparation here, we do not want to get a pittance of what we should get, because even the Japanese didn't get what they should have gotten back. Because Silicon Valley and all those places where they were making billions and trillions of dollars, what once owned, the Japanese once occupied that in California and in the West, and we got to begin to. But we appreciate that they're supporting us in our call for reparation. So what we got to do is not allow them to split us up and talk about giving us reparations in Tennessee, reparations in Arizona. No, we have to have a complete total, for all of us, that who are suffering from exploitation right now today. So therefore, the efforts in Shelby County that are being supported by Africans, because you got in Shelby County, you got the Europeans say they're they're not gonna let you have reparations, in Shelby County, and so consequently, it has to be a move from us as a whole, as a people, to be able to, to say that we need to receive reparation, and it's not something that they can just give us because they feel sorry for slavery. Reparation must be something other than a gift to us. We're making a demand, and in that demand, we should say 5 states or 12 states or whatever will fit us for here. And so I think that we can keep the reparations. Let me say this: in 1983, I went to the first National Reparations Conference that was held by the African People's Socialist Party. That was headquarters was in St. Petersburg. I went up to Akron, Ohio, to the second reparation conference, and so what we called for reparation, we said that we are owed, at that time we said $4.1 trillion. African people in America are owed $4 trillion, in American dollar, and in the process of talking about that, we're talking about land, in addition to talking about land. So anybody that's talking about giving us a few little pennies and all that kind of stuff, no, we're not going to allow that to happen. As a people, we should not allow that to happen. And I think that it's important, and Brother Kakai showed how when we did have a nation that was independent, how they were able to help others and help, to be liberated from colonial power. And so this is something I think that we need to keep on the part of understanding that, and so when it comes down to the United States of America and Britain and all those places, African people are owed reparation from all the Europeans, and they must demand that, from the so-called former colonial, powers that had conquered all the native people's lands and all that kind of thing. So we're not just by ourselves, even in America. If we just talk about we want a reparation here, we're not by ourselves. There are other people throughout the world that will support our reparation movement here.
Let me say this, because I've been waiting. I've been waiting patiently and listening, because as time goes on, what we want in terms of how it's expressed evolves into something that's clearer, better represented in terms of how it meets the needs of our people. Early on, 40 acres and a mule was probably a good idea at that time if they condensed all of us together in an area and gave all of us 40 acres and a mule, considering the population we had. But more importantly, on one hand, as a people, it's time for us to recognize that there's nothing that can amount to everything they owe us but a persistent amount of help to reconstruct the nation that should have already existed from day one. They do that around the world. As soon as this problem is over with in the Ukraine, they're going to send money in there to help them reconstruct the infrastructure to maintain international commerce. They will be in there making sure that all of their needs are met, because after the war, there are certain infrastructures that need to be repaired, reestablished, reinvented, given technological advances. In order for them to do what's necessary for us as a people here in the United States, they must recognize, as well as us as a people, that they must reconstruct and help redevelop the nation that they inhibited from being created in the first place. And once we establish that nation, then it's a twofold situation. Then they must use that as a prerequisite, or what do you call those, a precursor for what they need to do abroad. Because like Grandmaster Teacher said, they've damaged, affected brothers and sisters all around the world. And it just doesn't stop here. One of the initial things that will help them in the long run, once they provide us with all the things they owe us to create our own nation here, what would help them in the long run is that we will be assisting in making sure that our brothers and sisters abroad begin their process of becoming truly independent. They don't want that. They can't want that. Why? Because we dominate the world in the population. So natural order of things will put them in their place. They can't have that. They're greedy, they're selfish, they're the world's greatest killers, they're the world's greatest murderers. I guess that's the same thing. The world's greatest kidnappers, the world's greatest rapers. This is why we must prepare to protect and defend ourselves as we hold them accountable for what they owe us. It's no longer going to them anymore. We're going to have to hold them accountable for what they owe us. And had they did it after World War II, we wouldn't have to go through what we're going to have to go through. It's going to be bloodshed. I'm talking about in terms of in details. Their military, if they really are truly sincere about what they're doing, we already going to tell them what land is ours. We're going to have a constitution that more than likely, based on our history, will say the same things that the Haitians said. No white person can own any land in our country. And you got to go. And then when they don't go, we give them an ultimatum. But first, we'll let them come and get their white folks and move them on up in the north where they belong, in the cold climate. But after that, they got to go. And you know, the largest concentration of white folks' militias is in our national territory. So we're going to have to fight, brothers and sisters, and hold them accountable for giving us our land back. If it wasn't for us, they wouldn't be a superpower today. If it wasn't for us, they wouldn't have won most of the wars that they won. The one that they lost is because we didn't fight, and that was the Vietnam War. So guess what? When are we going to recognize that we are greater fighters than they are. And when are we going to use that energy to fight for ourselves? Because it's obvious they owe us. There's no question about that. And for the reparations to be in the climate right now, we need to make sure that we control the narrative of what that means. Don't let them say, like Grandmaster Teacher was saying, don't let them separate us and try to, every jurisdiction try to give us some money. Don't accept money solely. It's a multifaceted price on that. It's not just money, it's land. It's military armament, ammunition, guns, weaponry. The ones that they giving Ukraine right now, they should be warehousing it right now to give to us to set up our nation so that we can be two nations that are neighboring nations that are allies. What they're going to do is they do everything. They destroy all relationships because they are the world's greatest murderers. They are the world's greatest kidnappers. They are the world's greatest thieves. What they're going to do is they're going to allow this relationship to turn to an antagonistic relationship where brothers and sisters, we're going to have to defend ourselves because they're going to tell us we don't deserve anything. And I know none of you that's looking at us on Facebook believe that to be true. So gear up and be prepared because we didn't get nothing from a person who has stole everything that they had.
And I want to give a shout out to some people just checking in. Brother Black Cloud, how you doing, man? And Black Cloud, you've been doing some spectacular, wonderful jobs in creating some promotions for the Naba Network. And I just want to say personally, thank you for doing that, brother, man. Your works have not gone unnoticed, comrade, man. You're doing an excellent job, brother. And man, like you know what? We might need to network you. We might need to figure out something. We got to have Black Cloud to do because that's a powerful voice within the community down there in Miami, man. Matter of fact, I need to go down there and holler at you because Miami one of my favorite cities.
Hey, give us a shout out. Where's your background? I'm just hoping he say Haiti or something. But anyway, it don't matter. He's somebody that recognizes that what we're talking about is the truth.
I actually met Black Cloud at Nation Day, this past Nation Day. He's cool,
okay.
brother. He a brother. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he's from Haiti. I don't think so. I didn't.
Well, a lot of us, if you came anywhere from down south, you might have some Haitian, especially from New Orleans.
Yeah. What's up to Freedom Fighter and my bad, Black Cloud said, teach free the land. So in other words, somebody think you were teaching, man. Back time somebody thought Kakai. No, I'm just messing with you, bro.
Saying that, yes, sir, Kakai. What is that?
Freedom Power. What's up, Freedom Power? Another one of our strong warriors out there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, Kakai. And I'm gonna have to have you read this. Melly Queen still checking in. She one of our best soldiers. She be out there putting in that big time work. Yes. And as a matter of fact, it was Melly Queen and Black Cloud who collaborated and put a lot of these great promotions together. So I want to thank both of y'all. Y'all doing an excellent job. Thank you so very much. A lot of times I don't get around to just saying that to each individual who's doing great things, and I need to do better than that. That's one of my shortcomings. But now that it's on my mind and on my heart, I want to say thank both of you for the work that y'all do, not only for us at NOB, but for the whole nation and for your people. You know what I'm saying? Continue to do the beautiful work that you do.
Ditto. But okay. So I'm still not used to this technology, but I want to call Melly Queen because I know she's has the capability of bringing life into this dimension. So I want to graduate her because she already graduated to a goddess if she's brought life into this dimension. But Melly Queen says he needs to stop sending money to the Ukraine and give us our money. More power to you, sister. But the first reparation starts with us repairing and relearning what we need to live, what we need. Live natural and healthy lives and keep our minds clear. You are absolutely right. You know, that war on drugs wasn't a war on just keeping drugs from us. The war on drugs was making sure that enough of it got to us to be secure that we waste much of our time just in a daze and a haze and not thinking about the real deal, and that is fighting for ourselves and our freedom.
I'm gonna go to something Miller Queen said about the first reparations. It's about it comes within us about because like uh repairing ourselves because the root word of reparation is repair, and we have to acknowledge that we have been damaged from living under this system of white supremacy, oppression, capitalism, exploitation, and we can just go on and on and on about all the negative things that have happened to us here in North America. But so we have to acknowledge that we have been damaged and we are in desperate need of being repaired. But part of this is that part of the reasons why it's so difficult for us to be repaired is because we're still suffering from the damages. A lot of times, there's a lot of controversies with like black people and Jewish people, and a lot of times Jewish people like to say, well, I suffer more than you suffered, and all of this type of ridiculous argument that I don't even think is worth happening. But one thing that is interesting to analyze within what happened to Jewish people with Hitler in the Holocaust, with their Holocaust, is that when after the World War II was over, in Germany, they did something called the denazification of Germany. That's where everything in Germany that was associated with Nazis, whether the symbol, propaganda, education, all of those things were destroyed and demonized. But not only that, they began to re-educate and re-indoctrinate the citizens of Germany. They had educational programs. They created movies that were required for people to look at and say, okay, this is what Jewish people really are. This is the propaganda. All those things to redo the damage or reprogram and undo the damage that was caused by those years in which Hitler was in power and we had his program. Well, all right, now compare that to what happened to black people in America. We went through centuries of this under chattel slavery, and once the Civil War was over with, they didn't, the all of the symbols of the Confederate. They didn't destroy them. They didn't ban them. In fact, they made a resurgence and they came back and they began to represent the South. And they placed statues up
Right.
and gave holidays to these individuals. And not only that, they didn't create propaganda to counter it. They created propaganda that upholds it. In fact, the first major blockbuster movie period anywhere was a movie called Birth of a Nation. And this was a movie about black people after the Civil War, specifically black men who gained their freedom from this system of chattel slavery and became the boogie bear, evil, uncivilized beast who was going around terrorizing, murdering, and raping white women. And it was so necessary because the big bad boogeyman of the black man was doing so much damage and harm to so-called civilized people that the Ku Klux Klan had to rise to power to defend the honor of the white community in the white nation in America. This is the first movie that was the first blockbuster movie in history. This movie was so successful, they showed it at the White House. You know what I'm saying? So, Jewish people who got reparations and got a whole country and still get billions of dollars every year from America. Still to this day get billions of dollars every year to America, even though but America, the American government, didn't have anything to do with Nazi Germany, even though many of the Nazi scientists came and worked for the United States government, to help with their eugenics program and help use their tactics on black people in America. But the United States was not responsible for what happened to the Jewish people in Germany, but yet they still pay Jewish people billions of dollars every year. So, since Jewish people always like to say, I suffered more than you suffered, which is a ridiculous argument to even have. But when you compare and you look at what happened to what Jewish people happened, what happened to the Nazis and their propaganda and their systems afterwards, and compare that to what happened to black people and our enslavers and the perpetrators of our Holocaust. Instead of destroying it simply is evolved and became more efficient, and we're still suffering from it today. Today, we are still suffering the issues that we're dealing with today in our community, in our society, whether it be police brutality, whether it be even so-called black on black crime. These are all byproducts of the enslavement of African people. These are byproducts of chattel slavery. It's a continuation of the same struggle. It's not over. In 1865, that was not the end of it. That was just a part two of it. And we had part 7 or 8 of it, just like the Rocky movies. Just keep on making another one. We just have a continuation, another sequel to our oppression. And each one, it becomes more and more sophisticated. So, damn right, reparations is so important. I'm gonna let Grandmaster Teacher jump in here because I see you kind of itching to get involved in this conversation.
So let me say this, because when we talk about repairing ourselves, look at what they did to our history. Look at what they did to us as a history. African people. Africa was a continent of light, and by the 1800s, it became the dark continent. And so there's a book called Africa, Mother of Western Civilization by Dr. Yusuf Ben Jokana. It talks about, in other words, even the origin of Western civilization itself is a result of them being able to come and steal the knowledge, take the knowledge from Africa, and then go back and turn it around. And then we became all of a sudden the pagans, whatever they wanted to call us. And they even created a science of so-called skeletons, and which they said the Negroid and the Mongoloid and the Caucasoid, all false science, all the false sciences, in other words, came to the point of made of science to talk about our inferiority and to get us to speak. And that's why all over the world, we're suffering from that whole notion of inferiority. And to the extent that even on the continent itself, we have people trying to change the color of their skin or change the texture of their hair, or because they want to be like the European and the educational system. They're still going to UK and going to Portugal and going to France and coming to the United States. You know what I'm saying? And so consequently, it's something much more total than anything that the Jewish Holocaust has basically been crushed to the point where the Jews are thinking they're superior. The people who have called themselves Zionists, not all Jews, because Judaism is a religion. So, but it's not a race, but that whole notion of race was what the Europeans created. That has allowed them to put themselves in a position, and many of us are still, even the ones that have become got our so-called independence from the mother country, are still going to the mother country, because we feel that they are superior, that their knowledge is, all of that knowledge derived from the enslavement and the colonization of the Europeans, not only here but all over the world. And so consequently, when I hear brothers talk about, it's going to have to be a war, that's going to create the reparations, the true reparations, and we're going to have to eliminate all those elements. Like even right now in Kenya, the highlands are still being occupied by the European, and the tea, is being, the tea that come from Kenya is still owned by the European. In other words, all the industry and all these things that we got to understand that, and so consequently, we have got to get people to understand that Africa was the mother of Western. So everything, and last night yesterday when we had the people come up to talk about inventions, and all that, that information has always been known, that the greatest inventors, in America in particular, have been Africans, and the Africans, and never benefited from their inventions, And so one of the things that we have to understand is, and Germany is still paying reparations, to the state of Israel. The state of Israel created by the United States, it was Palestine. The name of the country is Palestine, not Israel. And once we begin to understand that they took it from the native people, but they did. I'm gonna tell you something. We can see what happened. Hundreds of thousands of European Jews were allowed to move into Palestine by the British. The British were the colonial power, and and when they came in, the British, fought the Arabs to let them come in, to Palestine, because they said in 1917 in the Balfour Declaration that Jews had a right to a homeland in Palestine. And so consequently, so we see what happened. So they came armed. They were wealthy. They bought up all that they could, and then they had guerrilla warfare against the British to force the British to leave, Palestine. So, and British, gave over responsibility that they got from the League of Nations and after World War I, and gave it over to the United States, and they got African Ralph J. Bunch to negotiate the boundaries and stuff of what they call Israel. And then what they call Israel was maybe 1/3 of Palestine. Now we got Israel being 3/4 of Palestine. And in other words, all these, the fight that the Palestinians had since 1967 have been to try to recover what they were given or negotiated for during the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, because Israel became a state in 1948, and which is after colonialism was supposed to have been disappeared in all the places in the world except for Africa. So these are the kind of things that we have to look at and understand that the war, not only the physical war, but also a mental and cultural war, has to be fought among ourselves so that we'll be able to gain control of all the things that they have done. They've unbalanced us as a people, and gotten us to want to pretend to be like them or be with them, and so consequently, that's a real big struggle. The biggest struggle is the internal struggle among ourselves in order to win back our cultural and our all the things that will be necessary for us to be in control. Because otherwise, we'd have our so-called leaders want to move to Paris or move to some other country, come to America. A lot of Nigerians and stuff are in here to stay in America. They're not going back because Britain still controls Nigeria, all the resources and all that, And so they've divided us up as a people. This is where we were talking about trying to make that movement back to the Republic of New Africa, to the territory that we're designated as ours.
Yeah. And excellent points. Actually, man, I'm gonna have to get out of here in a minute. So we're gonna have to wrap this up shortly. But before we go, I want to go back to the audience. There's a couple of points and conversations that we definitely want to address. If you could, come back.
Yes. Confidence, Chizoro.
You got your unmute.
OKK. I'm just gonna say OKK. Confidence, Chizoro, OKK. I have a contact with the Gulick and Geechee Nation in South Carolina. I would like to pass the phone number along if people are traveling to Charleston. Yes, my brother. And it would be great for us to have that number as soon as possible. We'll reach out to us. I guess you could, we can get together some type of way and try to make that happen, because it'll be a great opportunity for us to combine forces with people who have it in their DNA to be independent.
Did that real quick. brother KK, our sister. I don't know who you are. I'm sorry, but whoever you are, I know you somebody who put in good work. But comrade, just inbox me that information and we'll dialogue and we can continue. You know, we can continue that. So yeah, I appreciate that information, brother.
Yes, yes. And Melly Queen, the Black Holocaust is still going on. It was just upgraded. I wish you to put two D's there like on that movie.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's just upgraded and evolved. We don't even recognize we slaves. Thank you for that message, Queen, Melly Queen. Freedom power. We absolutely must have land reparations, raw material resources, technology, and capital, and etc. Do you, comrades, think the best way to distribute these reparations is to put them in the hands of the PGRNA's treasury at the new capital to be built, seated on the territory ASAP? It is feasible for us to get to the point of building our government with coalition, coalition building. Can we get some of these black million and billionaires to donate towards the construction of the Capitol? I mean, there's a lot of areas of opportunity. What we must always leave available to us as we evolve into making sure that our concept of having a new nation materializes is that we continue to put things like this on the table and discuss it as a people, because only the people will get us free. And then the minute we start doing things behind the scene, not transparent, on our own, individually, it's going to create the problem that we've been talking about all the time is our problem, individuality. We need a collective discussion, and we need to decide collectively how we go about doing it. I can't give you a definite answer today, but collectively we are. You know, the old saying is more than one mind together thinking together is a mastermind. So let's keep it like that. Let's do it collectively.
And this is what I would say to that. I mean, I know it's a lot of talk about reparations, and a lot of people, a lot of times we get excited about that, but don't get it twisted. You know, what I mean, it's really important that our voice, we do everything that we can to make sure that our voice is the leading voice on this, and we can influence this conversation as much as we possibly can. Because if we don't, then it'll end up going somewhere it doesn't need to be. And even if reparations is approved, it'll be in a form that really does not help us collectively. So, but after saying all that, it's important that we understand that we're not dependent on white people to give us reparations in order for us to build our nation. Because we got to take that amongst ourselves. So right now, you know what I'm saying, regardless to what district you're in or what part of the country you're in, we have to make it our personal responsibility, our personal quest, our personal goals and objective to build up our nation from the best that we can, to utilize all the resources that we can to try to empower ourselves as much as we can. And how can we do that? Then we have to start to create our own institution. It does not have to. We don't have to say, okay, you know what? I need this 3-story building for a school. You know what I'm saying? If it starts with just something small as a home school and grows, because things develop from the simple to the complex. So whatever we have that we can utilize to help get the minds of our people and gain some resources and help our people out, we need to do that. So once, if reparations come in a way that we can, we already have a foundation that we can build upon. It ain't like, okay, we got to start from ground up and try to figure it out. Like we just been sitting and talking on social media all day. Now they say, okay, here goes some money, go be free. And here goes some land, go be free. And we don't know we got to figure out what to do with it. You know, we know the Republic of Africa, we have plans. You know, our ancestors has a whole plan. You know, and the thing about it is what we have to be doing in this day and age, we have to be taking those plans and those blueprints and we have to update them. We have to modernize them because this ain't exactly the same world that the nation came into. 1968 is a whole different technology, a whole different, a lot of different things. So we have to update the plans that the PGRNA put out back in the 60s and early 70s. You know, we got to be updated to 2023 and beyond. So we ain't just wait on reparations to happen. We got to take an active responsibility and participation in the liberation of our people right now, right here, with whatever it is we got. You know what I'm saying? If we got a penny, we're gonna use that penny for the liberation of our people. You know, and real quick, Comrade Fadali, you got any closing word? Because I got to get out of here.
Yes. Okay. So I think this has been a very productive discussion. I look forward to getting, with the people who are tuned into this, to the messages that we've put across, so that we can be able to build. And the key thing is to have the knowledge to understand that you have to build. And once you do that, once we're able to understand that, and that we will build, it's not a chance that we're not going to build. And we got to have the confidence in our people, that they have tried to undermine, us in terms of, but our people are ready for whatever situation is going to make them, allow them to be a part of a great movement and a great struggle and a great, world that we're going to create.
You got anything?
Yeah, just quick, because I know we got other things we do. Number one, we have to make sure that we broaden our aspects of reparations to understand that we have in our capabilities to solicit help from other allies as well. So we don't have to sit around and wait for the United States to recognize the truth and the value and the honor in giving us what we deserve. We can continue to, like Brother Prophecy said, we can continue from the grassroots and develop our infrastructure as we go along. And the other little thing I want to say is that Andrew Johnson he was the one that really caused us not to get the 40 acres and a mule in an important way, because he allowed the Southern plantations owners to be released from war crimes. And on top of that, he was the first president ever impeached. Just think about that. These are the people we deal with.
Definitely. And like I said, time running fast, and I got to get out of here. So I'm going to leave y'all with something plain and simple, with our battle cry, and that is free the land, free the land, free the land. And we'll see y'all again next week. I'll see y'all tomorrow on the New
America, full of promises. Time to cash them in. You run from it quick. You never keep your word. I learned from it quick. You keep abusing me. You dumb. Europeans murdered 98% of the indigenous population right here in Turtle Island in order to steal the land.